Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to another episode of GEEXX Reads. Ordinarily, I would do my, today we're talking about Shadow and Bone and hold up a little copy of the book here in my clever little editing or lack of editing skills way of being goofy. Unfortunately, I have borrowed the copy of this book from my daughter and I gave it back to her and I was done. So I can't do that. And I feel a little awkward because I'm used to having a prop to hold on to in my hands, but I can't do that. Anyway, we're going to talk about Shadow and Bone, and all you have to look at is this picture over my shoulder. We read this book, recently for a book club. We finished about a month or so ago. I don't remember. It was the last book we read for book club. It went out in the poll, and when I put it up there as a suggestion, I didn't realize it was a young adult book. Now, I have nothing against young adult books. A lot of them are very well written, but usually these books tend to be shorter or easier to read. And this was kind of no exception. That's kind of what threw me off a little bit when I opened up to read it. I went through the book, and the rest of the book club went through the book very, very quickly. Because in spite of it being almost 300 pages, it has a big font size. There's not as many words on a page. So, that was unexpected. It is what it is. Doesn't mean it was a bad book. I very much enjoyed the book. The book, quick summary of the plot, is the main character is Alina Starkov. Her best friend is Mal Orestev, I think. The opening of the book starts up with them growing up in an orphanage. In the first chapter, the second chapter, they're both kind of in the army. He's a soldier. She's like a map maker. They have to go through this thing called the Fold, which is this shadowy stretch of land that crosses like their country, and it's cut the country in two, and it's very dangerous to cross. So during the crossing, something happens. Alina emits a burst of light from her body. Turns out she's a Grisha, which is this world's version of people who can use magic, though they don't call it magic. They call it the small science. Different Grisha can do different things. Some of them can heal. Some of them can work with, materials. Some of them can manipulate water or air or fire. Alina can manipulate light, although she denies that she did anything. Nothing special about her. And the story kind of goes on from there. Her being taken back to train, being separated from Mal, blah, 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 blah. There's teenage drama. Well, they're not teenagers. There's young adult romance drama. Despite the fact that the book was fairly predictable because it was meant for a younger audience, like a middle, I have to say it was aimed at middle school ages, young teens, ages 12 to 15 would be the target audience as a guess. I still very much enjoyed the book. I mean, I tore through it very quickly because I enjoyed it. One of the differences in this book is that it's I'm not sure how much is based on Russian folklore, but the style of dress, the architecture of the buildings, the names of things are very much Russian influenced. And that was a refreshing change for me, because I mean, most of our fantasy, a huge amount of it, is based on Greek mythology or Celtic mythology, both of which I love. Some Norse mythology thrown in there too, but it's mostly surrounding that style of storytelling and that the things we're familiar with. Those areas are things that have leached into our culture from those cultures, and they've melded into our storytelling and our understanding of what a fantasy world should look like. So having something that was not that, I enjoyed. I don't know if the culture was Russian. I don't know how much it actually mirrors Russian folklore. I'd be interested if anyone knows. I don't know if I'll ever look into it myself. I have so much in my to-read list. And I'm not doing nearly enough reading to catch up with it. There were some things that actually did surprise me a little bit. There were some subtleties here and there, even though the story was like I said, very predictable. There were a few subtle hints, things that were Um, what's what I'm looking for? Not foretold. Things were hinted at. There's a more literary term for that. Things that were hinted at early in the story that had payoffs later, but there were small things that you might not have noticed if you weren't paying attention. And not that I paid attention, I just happened to notice them out of sheer chance. Because in the book club discussions, people were saying, well, this happened, the blah, blah, blah. And I kind of remember, oh, no, they mentioned this earlier. So it kind of makes sense. It follows through. It does make sense. It follows through something that, it was a payoff from something that was mentioned previously. And since I don't ordinarily notice those things, since I'm pretty oblivious when I read or watch TV shows or movies, I've mentioned before, I'm a passive consumer of media. The fact that I remembered, I was kind of proud of. I really, and I've said this several times already, I really, really did like this book, which surprised me considering that when I first opened the pages and realized it was a young adult novel, I was kind of like, oh, it's one of those. Not to say that, again, not that young adult fiction is bad. I do wind up enjoying some of it. I did read a lot with my girls when they were growing up, so I was, exposed to this, I guess you could say, as an adult. And some of the books that I read with them, I really, really enjoyed, and some of them I just had to slog through. And then a couple of them I said, kids, I can't keep reading this. It's boring. It's boring. They loved it. It bored me. I felt really bad about it. But I did like this book. My daughter was very pleased when I asked, I said, Brianna, you've mentioned this story before. Do you have a copy of this? She's like, oh yeah. She was so happy to give it to me. She gave me all 3 books in the first trilogy. I am reading the second one, and I asked her if she had everything else. I think there's like 6 or 7 books total in the series. I asked her, oh yeah, I've got everything by the author. She was so happy. It's like, just let me know when you want them. I'll let you have them. I would recommend these books, just with the preface. I'm having trouble with my words today. Preface that this is a young adult novel and it is a relatively easy read. There are a few surprises, but not many. It's fairly predictable, but it's still fun, and that's the important thing. It was a fun thing to read. I liked the characters. Even the characters I didn't like were fun to read about. There's always some villainous character, yada, yada. But they were still maybe not fun, but they were interesting. Despite the fact that it was aimed at a younger audience, I don't think, and I think this is why I don't think the author talked down to the audience. I always hate it when authors do that, when they think they're writing for a younger audience, so they treat their younger audience like they're stupid, and I've always hated that. So I don't think the author talked down to her audience. I think that there were things that it was relatively clean as far as that goes. No excessive sex or violence. Nothing that would be inappropriate for a teen to read, or young teen to read. But again, didn't really pull any punches. Didn't treat the audience like they were too young or innocent to read the material. So I would recommend this if you're interested in a fantasy novel, just with the understanding that this is a more simple book than I initially thought it was going to be. I am reading the second book. Haven't finished it yet. Been taking a while to get through that one for some. It hasn't caught me. I'll review the second book later. I won't talk about it now. Just to know that I am reading it. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Fun book. I liked it, and I think I think other people might like it too. So, as always, thanks for watching. As always, if you like my videos, why would anyone do that? And until next time, good hunting.